For the longest period of time, I thought that being a jack of all trades, in other words, knowing a little about a lot, was better than being a specialist or knowing a lot about a little. But time and again, I was proven wrong. So when I was in high school, for example, I thought that the way to get into those highly selective and reputable colleges was to just do as much as I possibly could. So I took music lessons, I played guitar, I played soccer, I took fencing lessons, I did a bunch of different random internships and pre-college programs over my summer breaks. And then when the time came for us to get our admissions results, I didn't quite make it. I didn't really get into a school that was that selective or reputable. And then if you fast forward to when I was transitioning out of the Army, I was applying for software engineering positions, and I had a tough time making it in the door at that point as well. Because while I had something that was arguably very impressive on my resume and eye-catching, which was that I was an Army officer, people looked at that and said, that's great, but it looks like you're more of a generalist because you managed large teams, you were kind of hands-off when it came to operations, you deployed to a variety of different places, managed a large variety of different equipment that had different capabilities. So when it comes to software engineering, what do you specialize in? Is there a particular language like Java or C or React or Python that you're very good at? Are you more front-end or back-end or a tester or an architect, etc.? And because I wasn't able to say that I specialize in any of those things, it was harder for me to get into the door. It's only after I amassed some experience in one particular area that I started to get a little bit more attention. And it didn't just stop there. I've actually moved around a lot more in my career than many people do. Besides the Army, I've not really had a chance to stay in one spot for longer than a little over a year. But I noticed that in all these different organizations I've been to, the people that had the most seniority and the most responsibility and respect were the ones who had stayed in one spot for as long as possible rather than moving around as much as I did. Now, the reason why it pays to be a specialist is because society needs people to be really good at what they do in order to actually get results rather than just being sort of good at it and sort of good at something else. So as an example, just ask yourself, would you rather get on a plane where the pilot is really experienced and good at flying and dedicated his entire career to it? Or would you rather it be someone who is sort of good at flying but is also sort of good at sailing or something? Would you rather buy a computer from someone who's really good at hardware engineering and possibly even has a degree in that and has been doing it for pretty much their entire career? Or would you rather be someone who just kind of dabbles in that in their spare time in their basement or something and who also kind of dabbles in guitar? I think the answer in both cases is you would want the expert. So whether it's the software industry or the airline industry or medicine or the law, in any industry, we need people to be really good at what they do. And while being good at one thing means that you're probably not going to be really good at anything else, that's okay, because the point is there are enough people on the planet to fill those other roles. So while you might be really good at playing basketball, but you don't know the first thing about treating a cancer patient, there's somebody else out there who's going to be a really great doctor who knows everything about that, but who couldn't catch a basketball to save their lives. So figure out what you're passionate about, something that you could really see yourself dedicating pretty much your entire career to. And yes, that is a pretty big commitment, so it is okay early on to kind of experiment and try different things until you find something that you really like, but just know that eventually you have to decide on one thing. And some people will tell you that it's better to switch jobs every so often because you get your biggest pay raises when you do that. And there is some truth to that, but just know that it's not sustainable because every time you move, you pretty much have to start from the bottom and work your way up again. So it's best to stay in one spot as long as you possibly can to get as much experience as you possibly can in one or two specialized areas. And that applies even if you're still in school. So rather than trying to play a bunch of different sports or a bunch of different instruments, or even if it's a cause or an academic subject, like if you want to be really good at math and go win a bunch of math competitions, then pick that one thing, stay dedicated to it, and become really good at it to show that you're passionate about it. Because that's going to make you much more marketable and successful than if you try to move around all the time and do everything you possibly can get your hands on. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do different things. You certainly can, and as a matter of fact, it's healthy to have that variety. You just have to compartmentalize and make sure you're doing those other things on your personal time rather than when you're trying to build a career for yourself. So, hope that was insightful for you, and I'll see you next time.